Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to the Psalms of my friends. Why do people say, I love the ocean? Well, Psalm 107 is going to give us a little bit of a clue. So we've been admiring Psalm 107. It's kind of a medium to long psalm. There was an introduction, then there's 4 stanzas, then there's an outro. We're going to talk about the 4th stanza and the outro today. Each of those stanzas has a problem, and then a crying out for help, and then deliverance or rescue by the Lord, and finally a light bulb from the knuckleheads that are in the psalm, and they eventually give thanks. So today is going to be about sailors caught in the storm on the big ocean. So consistent with the other 3 stanzas, which preach kind of the foolishness of man and getting themselves into trouble, often the rightness of trouble gets them, and often the rightness of trouble that he gets himself into. So it's man's fault is the point. So here we go. This is verse 23 of Psalm 107. Some went down to the sea in ships doing business on the great waters, which is no problem. But there they see the deeds of the Lord, verse 24, his wondrous works in the deep. So about a week ago, we studied and admired Psalm 19. And that psalm leaves no one and no place and no thing concealed from the truths of the firmament. So similarly, I love the ocean. Why do people say that? It's because the voice of God is busy there, revealing the glory and the work and the knowledge and the power of God. To who? To everybody. So the scope of the audience of the ocean is going to be whoever sees it. No one who has ever seen the ocean is without excuse with regards to God. So the ocean, as well as the sky, has something to say. It teems with meaning. The sky and the ocean, it's not uncommunicative. There's no speech. There's no words where this voice is not heard. There's no place of ignorance that's not exposed to the truth. It goes to the whole earth, or at least if you've seen the sky, it's everybody. If you've seen the ocean, it's you if you've seen it. So back to the Psalm 107, verse 25. For he commanded and raised the stormy wind which lifted the waves of the sea. They mounted up to heaven, they went down to the depths, and their courage, the guys on the boat now, their courage melted away in their evil plight. They reeled and staggered like drunken men. They were at wit's end. So these guys are on an evil plight. They're not on some holy pilgrimage as they are at sea. Now, one of the commentators that I read said perhaps they were in service of a foreign king. Why is that? Well, because Israel basically never marshaled a navy or a big merchant fleet. So probably it's an Israelite who's serving another king. Either way, it tells us that they are on an evil plight. So then this Lord brings up the storm, and then verse 28. So then finally they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. He made the storm be still, and the waves of the sea were hushed. Then they were glad that the waters were quiet. No kidding. And he brought them to their desired haven. So they get to go to their destination and they don't get shipwrecked. Verse 31, let them thank the Lord for his steadfast love. We're going to talk about that at the end. For his wondrous works to the children of man. Let them extol him in the congregation of the people and praise him in the assembly of elders. So they have this problem, they cry out, the Lord rescues them, and finally then they give thanks. So then let's go to the outro of the song. So now we get to this, it's a theme that declares the way of the Lord. So he can turn things upside down. He can, and sometimes does, give consequences for evil. He turns rivers into a desert, springs of water into thirsty ground, and a fruitful land into a salty waste because of the evil of the inhabitants. So the Lord kind of can turn things around. And then he can, and sometimes does, give blessing to those that are diminished and lowly and oppressed. He turns deserts into pools of water, a parched land into springs of water. And there he lets the hungry dwell, and they establish a city to live in. They sow fields and plant vineyards and get a fruitful yield. And by his blessing, they multiply greatly. And he does not let their livestock diminish. When they are diminished and brought low through oppression, evil, and sorrow, He pours contempt on princes and makes them wander in trackless wastes. So here we see the Lord raises up the needy and the families out of affliction. Verse 41. But he raises up the needy out of affliction and makes their families like flocks. The upright see it and are glad, and all wickedness shuts its mouth. So, all wickedness shuts its mouth. And who has the final say here? It's our good Lord. So we see that the Lord is at work. The Lord sees, the Lord hears, and the Lord focuses on people's heart. He hears the needy. He's not mocked, and all evil is going to be punished, and punished sometimes even today, sometimes even in real time. So no one is without excuse. If you've seen the heavens, you're without excuse. If you've seen the ocean, you're without excuse. So then, how shall I respond to the truths of Psalm 107, these truths of God? Well, Psalm 107 even answers that. Here's the final line of Psalm 107, verse 43. Whoever is wise, let him attend to these things. Let them consider the steadfast love of the Lord. So, dear brothers and sisters, let's do just that. Let's attend to these things, which you've been doing. Thanks for being here. Let's listen. Let's focus hard to remember that this is lots about the knuckleheadedness of mankind. But through it all, the real point of Psalm 107 is the Hesed faithfulness of the Lord. Let me give a couple definitions, fun definitions of Hesed. These are three of my favorites. Hesed is when we have the right to expect nothing and we get everything. And Hesed is when God extends kindness to the ungrateful and the uncooperative. And this one's from my granddaughter. It's when God butters your bread on both sides. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here for Psalm 107.